Absolutely. I was excited after the game. Then I get to watch the film on Saturday or on Sunday and visit with my staff this morning. Just really excited about the growth on that day in particular. Just a chance to be in front of obviously a record-setting crowd, but kind of see how guys play when the bullets are flying as close as we can get it to next fall in our opener. But just starting off on the offense side of the ball, I really like the fact that we were pretty clean. Obviously had a couple penalties, but for us to play the way we were at the beginning of spring to where that is full circle is really, really good. Just guys lined up doing what we're supposed to do. Didn't have any turnovers, fumbling the ball. Obviously a pick and a couple picks and some things that could have been there, but I was very, very happy with the way that we respected the football in every way possible. And then I think really a group that's grown as much as anybody is just how we want to run the football, offensive line wise, tight end wise, fullbacks, using all those guys together, and was particularly excited about that. I think on defense, the linebackers really came in strong here as of late and did a couple nice things that they hadn't necessarily been doing all spring and flashed for sure. So excited about that group. And then probably the biggest thing that was really excited about was just the way we kicked the football. Not just the field goals and the PATs, but just how we struck the ball in the punt game and covered it as well. So those three things were definitely bright spots. I know we gave you a two deep there, and that's kind of been an evolution from that first practice to where we are today. And got some other guys that I think of the incoming freshmen that'll help us and maybe get into two deep as well early on. But other than that, everything was pretty upbeat. So with that, open up for any questions.
Coach, this kind of went without being asked yesterday, but who was Hawker's holder?
Who was Hawker's holder? He's actually a walk-on that joined us, a snapper that joined us in January. Those guys, I know Zach's felt good about him all the way through, and obviously was really good on Saturday.
No name?
Yeah. It's not on there.
We'll take a number.
We'll just call the holder.
Yeah, the holder. It's killing me right now.
I think you made a comment, one of your earliest press conferences we had, that you take over a new system, there's going to be some attrition and all, but I don't think there's been any as of yet. And I just wonder how you felt like they've taken to what you guys are doing.
Well, the only two guys that didn't join us were Austin Flynn and DeFonte Lowe. Those two guys obviously weren't there. There were actually two guys that I suspended from the game. Just wanted them to concentrate on academics that weren't there. But other than that, yeah, the guys have been buying in. I don't think anybody was looking to run out the door. I do think that over the course of the summer, there's some guys that got to get right academically. Otherwise, they put the decision in their own hands. I think just overall the way everybody just kind of rallied around the situation. And again, we don't really talk about what we weren't a part of, but whatever happened in the past was going to be left in the past. I didn't want to dwell on it or speak about it really, other than acknowledge that it happens and have to answer a question here or there. But the positive energy and the food and the excitement has been really, really evident to us.
There's no four on the quarterback. I'm curious your thoughts about Brandon Allen moving forward.
Yeah, and then again, you guys saw limited practices, but really Brandon Allen, really from the first week to the game that you saw on Saturday, made progress all the way along. But just really the last 2 weeks have been exceptional. Just continued to make strides. Brandon Mitchell does a lot of really good things as well. One thing we can't do is we can't turn the football over. We can't create negative plays on our own, and I think that Brandon Allen just did a lot better job of that overall, and has progressed in a way that has put him in that position.
Coach, from the time you took your program over in December to after spring football practice, is there anything you would have done different, and do you feel like you progressed the way you wanted to?
Is there anything I would have done different? I'm sure there's some things along the way, but nothing glaringly jumps out. I usually try to take to me there's four major parts of your program. There's a winter conditioning, spring ball, summer conditioning, and then how you handle the fall. Obviously, we've been through the winter conditioning program and now gone through spring ball. Really wouldn't go back and change anything there. A couple guys that we need to bring along in the development area from just purely putting on weight. We need to kind of get our game plan together on those guys, but I really like the way we handle spring practice and the attitude that our kids approached it with.
You mentioned DeFonte Lowe. Does he still have a shot to be a part of the team?
No, DeFonte won't be back with the team. He's still in school. He's doing really well academically, actually, and going to look into the options that he wants to pursue here in the next couple of weeks. Him and Austin both.
You
talked Saturday about wanting to talk to Brandon Mitchell about his role on the team. Are you talking about like a special package from a quarterback, or maybe a different position, or what?
A little bit of both. I think you can. Actually, haven't had the players all visit with their coaches today and tomorrow. Well, I wanted to set aside Monday and Tuesday just so that they don't have any obligations with us from a meeting standpoint or with Coach Urban in the weight room. I wanted them to all have an interview with their position coach so they can kind of sit down, get together on where they are on the depth chart, where they are academically, where they're at socially, and then starting Wednesday, then I'll start to meet with every player in our program. Just on a case-by-case basis, just talk about what we can do to make their role better. I'm a big believer in that everybody on this team has a role, and I don't care if you're the second-string quarterback or the second-string snapper, middle linebacker, whatever it is. They have to know what that role is and it be defined, and let them know where it's going to be. As far as with Brandon Mitchell, obviously I think at quarterback he's got some special gifts that he definitely we can use or make better. If there's another role of him at another position, it'll be something that we'll kind of work through together.
So you play both?
I think so, without a doubt.
You know, early on you said we're going to embrace this underdog role, your first press conference.
Mm-hmm.
And then on Saturday you said, well, we did this, and that's indicative of championship football, and we did this, and you mentioned that a couple times. So what should the fans be expecting from next season?
Well, I think when I made that reference, I just meant that it was a football team that just went 4-8. It was a team that had lost its head coach prior to the season ever starting, and then an interim coach that was on his way out the door, obviously, and bringing in a new coach. I don't think there were a lot of people that were talking about Arkansas football, and that is what I meant by the underdog role. And I think going into the fall, it reminds me a lot of when I first took over at Wisconsin. Now, we finished that season 12-1, but I think we started the season ranked like 65th or 68th in the country, and because everybody thought, hey, we lost a lot of really good players. There was a new coach, didn't really know a lot about him, and I think that same thing now. In our obviously division, we're playing in not only the best conference, but probably the best division in college football, and I don't think a lot of people have their eyes on Arkansas right now, and I think that's a position that we really, really like, and I think it's the one that you can work up to the other.
So when you look coming in, you said you didn't want to look at a lot of tape and make expectations, and now that you've seen these guys, what kind of talent do you think you got there?
Well, the talent that again, we haven't played a schedule yet, but it's kind of a little bit of a different thing. Our three linebackers that started the game on Saturday, none of them have starting experience. So it's guys that are really unknown, not only to the rest of the conference, but unknown to our team. But they really played well during the course of the spring, and got some other guys. I think if I just looked at it across the board, I think our defensive line is an area of strength. No doubt, you got two defensive ends and Chris Smith and Trey Flowers, who I think are exceptional players. And the one thing that feeds off that is I've been in a lot of places where you have maybe one good DN and the other one's not so good, and of course teams figure it out pretty quickly and where they want to run the football. To have that balance is good. I think our inside group of D tackles is very, very gifted as well as a little bit of depth there. I've been very intrigued with the way that our two safeties, Rohan Gaines and Eric Bennett, have played, communicate very, very well. We did notice, obviously, when we lost Tevin Mitchell that first play on Saturday, he's a good player, and when you lose someone of significance like that, it really affected us in corner play, and that's got to be an area that we continue to build and develop. Offensively, I've been very impressed with Jonathan Williams and Cody Walker, and then Nate Holmes has his own set of gifts. That he's not the same type of runner, but he definitely has a role. He didn't play in the first half either because obviously we wanted to get him right academically, but I'm really excited about that running back group with two freshmen I think coming in that can help as well.
Coach, your assistants have 159 evaluation days left. When are you going to pick that up again?
They'll start Tuesday. By NCAA rules, you're allowed 168 days. You've known pretty good because we lost 9 on Operation New Era the other day, and really for the rest of this month, and then we won't go out anything further than that Friday before Labor Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend. So we'll use really the next 5 weeks as a window to get better. We're going to come in midway through on a Monday and Tuesday and have everybody here in the office to kind of revamp and get a hold on what we are from recruiting, and then we'll push out the last 3 weeks.
A.J. Turner, what's he need to do to get back in the mix?
AJ had a good spring. He unfortunately, he came in with a bad wrist and then broke his wrist. I believe it was third or fourth week of winter conditioning as well, and unfortunately that's going to take a little bit of time to heal. That's why he was in the splint. AJ unfortunately lost his grandfather last week as well, so I brought him in and just explained to him, you know, there's a lot of things that have been taking hits at him. As you know, he's got the injuries, lost a grandparent. You know, I think the transition hasn't been exactly a bed of roses for him, just because we wanted to hold him to a little bit higher accountability in all areas, and he's buying in and he hasn't left. I said that's a great statement on his behalf. I think AJ's got a lot of talent, a lot of upside that I'm excited to tap into.
Mitchell Lowen, what have you seen from him to put him at?
Mitchell was doing great. You know, he unfortunately rolled his ankle. I believe it was 3 weeks out. We didn't think we were going to get him out there at all. He's been probably the nice surprise. Obviously, a walk-on from Hawaii. I don't even know how he got here, but it's worked out very well for him. Well, he's a kid that, because of what we do offensively, will continue to grow the package. I think him, and I've been very impressed with Austin Tate. I think those two guys together could be a formidable pair. Then you bring in a guy like Sprinkle, who is a little bit more of an athlete guy. He doesn't have enough lead in his tail right now, but we can use him kind of on the move and do some nice things with him. Volsky is another walk-on that has been very impressive for us in the spring drills. So to have a position that wasn't really recruited or manned up, we're actually got a little bit of depth there, which is kind of nice.
Since you switched their positions, what do you want out of Allison and Bray Cook this summer?
You know, two things. I think Bray, we could have kept him a tackle and kept moving along, you know, and everything would have been what it is. But I just think ideally he's built and wired kind of to be more of an inside player. If he was playing tackle and it was his last year, the first thing the NFL would say is, let's move him to guard, you know. So rather than wait and let them do it, we thought we'd let him play in there. He's gotten better. It's a different game inside, you know. You got a different pass set. You usually have help. You don't have the edge. All the guys that I've been around that have been great players for us on the inside have been built a little bit more like Bray, very athletic. He's got enough pop, enough snap. And then just to get Grady in the mix, I think Grady has got a lot of potential. You know, he doesn't have the size that we need yet, but he's got the length and the athleticism. We had a day where we put the offensive players over to defense and the defensive players over on offense. And, of course, he'd played defense in the past, but some of the drills we had them do that day, you can see how athletic he is compared to the rest of those linemen.
You didn't have Hurd, obviously, last week or so this spring, but what did you think about the chemistry, that first team line especially?
Well, two blessings out of that. Obviously, we don't want to see anybody ever get hurt, but with Hurd being down, it gave us a chance to get Beck in there quite a bit, and he had a really big jump the last 2 weeks. You know, he's got the length that you want. He's definitely got the willpower. He's got a great attitude. So I think that proved to us as coaches that we can also snap somebody in there, and there will be little to no issues in the transition. But that's the reason we play ones against ones. I think that as I looked around the world of college football the last 2 weekends and see all these different teams, they draft teams, and you know, half your starters. I wanted our guys to play together. I want that line to know they're playing together. I wanted that D line to play together. I wanted to develop that chemistry, and that's exactly what the goal was, and I think it's worked very, very well.
How's McClure adjusted?
McClure, he has his ups and downs. Great kid, you know, he's thick. I know it's very, very important to him. You know, he's a kid that you know, used to weigh like, I believe, over 400 pounds and trimmed his weight down to, you know, whatever it's at now, 325, 330. I think all those junior college kids go through a little bit of an adjustment, you know, not walking into a program for the first time and hearing language and verbiage for the first time. And, you know, I could see John being a valuable guy for us depth-wise. I don't know if he'll bust into that starting lineup, but I see him being a great depth guy.
Speaking of the junior college guys, you got Martrell Spade coming in the fall. What kind of role do you see him coming in?
Well, I think Martrell, you know, one thing that you saw in film is he was a very active player. He was, you know, had a bunch of tackles, very instinctive. He's kind of got the ability to probably play all three positions. Ideally, you'd probably want to play him at the Sam or the Will, but he's a productive player, very serious, very conscientious young man. And again, the biggest statement that Martrell made to me was he could have left that junior college in the middle and gone and played at several other schools, but to play in the SEC and more importantly to play at Arkansas, he had to take one more class, and he opted to do that because he wanted to be a Razorback, which says a lot to me.
You know, Hines started quite a bit last year, and Collins redshirted. What did Collins do this spring to, at least for now, be a first-team guy over Hines?
I missed the first part.
With
Hines?
Yeah, well, last year Hines played quite a bit, and Collins redshirted.
Yeah.
But you got Collins ahead for now. What's the dynamic?
Well, first off, Collins had a very nice scrimmage when he took that role about 3 weeks ago. He made a nice couple open field plays, made a couple nice pass breakups. You know, the great thing about him is he's a really good player. The bad news is there's not a lot of him. You know, he only weighs about 165 pounds, and he needs to be a lot bigger than that to play in the SEC. So he needs a big summer, and we need to do that. Will Hines, you know, like I grabbed Will last week. I can't go out and recruit a corner that physically is what you are. You know, he's tall, he's long. I think he's got enough foot speed. He's got to play smart. He's got to play aggressive. He's got to play big. You know, right now he doesn't play big. He was backing away from things and playing a little soft on certain looks, and that's not him. And to his credit, I think he was a little bit banged up and didn't want to say it. I think he had an issue in his groin and just bothered him a little bit more than he probably is letting on. So I think the upside for him is great. Between him, Carroll Washington, and obviously, you know, Tevin that I mentioned, that's 4 guys that I think have the ability to play here.
Because you've now had a chance to travel throughout the state and see a bunch of Razorback fans, and then to see 51,000 here on Saturday. You seem to have been welcomed with open arms, haven't you?
It's been awesome. I don't know if it's the whole hog background thing or what, but yeah, I mean, it's been. Tonight we're going to Pine Bluff. I don't know where all these cities are because we fly in by plane. I don't know what directions we're going, but I've been all over the state, and it's been great. You know, I thought the neatest thing for Saturday, and I mentioned it before I left, but it was awesome to go over in the end zone over there, and we had almost 600 people, which were former players. I'm sorry, our current players and their families, and to meet them all and learn a little bit more about them was absolutely awesome. So. It's always easy to be liked when you're undefeated, though. I get that right now, you know. So we'll just continue to work, continue to do what we do. But yeah, I tell you, the other thing that's really been overwhelming. We had a lot of good recruits in, and the one thing our recruits and their parents make comments to is just how genuine the people are when they visit here, and that part is something you can't fake that, and you can't put a price tag on what that's worth.
Do you want Hawker coming into the summer thinking he's the punter as well as the kicker?
Well, right now he is. You know, obviously we got Hill that's going to come in. You know, the junior college kid, and we have a couple other guys that are in that role. But you know, Hawk hit the ball really good. You know, from a punt standpoint. You know, now one of the things I'm always concerned with as specialists is just them out kicking their leg. You know, just getting too many reps. So we're going to have to make sure. I've never had a guy handle all kicking responsibilities, punter and kicker. I've seen it done, but I've just got to really. One of my main things is during the summer is talk with a couple coaches that have had that before that maybe can give some insight on how much volume they can have.
When we watched the game Saturday, do you think that was, you know, offense, defense, what you're running, or is that what we're going to see, or was that really vanilla?
Well, it was. I would say it was what you're going to see in the fall. I mean, we like the power run game. I think there's certain things, but yeah, these guys will tell you. I mean, there was a lot of things we didn't run offensively and defensively. I was trying to limit Coach Ash on the number of pressures he could bring. You know, although he didn't obey my rules on that one either. We brought a few more pressures than I would have liked, but it was mainly just 1 or 2 pressure looks that were pretty easy to pick up. So. In a way, though, you know, I made a comment to our coaches. You know, we had a number of players that played their best scrimmage, and they said, well, you know, a lot of them would say, well, the limited package really helped him. You know, he played. Well, I'm like, exactly. That's my point. I would rather be great at a few things than be mediocre at a bunch of things, and I say that all the time to my coaches, and it's human nature. You know, they got too many things. You know. I've been running the offensive, defensive coaches all along that you just got to scale back their package and be great at what we want to be great at, and that's a hard concept sometimes to get through.
You know, a lot of times when a coach switches jobs, he brings his whole staff with him. And you brought some of your guys from Wisconsin, but it's a real meshing of different leagues and different schools and different areas. Just how do you think that's worked, and how do you like that?
Well, for me, I've been blown away with how well this staff has worked. You know, I knew. Let's put it this way, I brought the coaches with me from Wisconsin that I wanted to bring with me and establish myself down here, but I didn't want to just do that. I could have brought everybody with me, you know, but I wanted to bring in some influences from other areas. Defensively, I knew that I wanted to bring Chris and Charlie, that was for sure. I knew that I wanted to bring my strength coach and Mark Torsan, my director of operations. I knew that wanted to exist. I did talk to a couple of my offensive coaches, not my OC, but a couple coaches about, you know, joining us here, and you know, they had other opportunities going and some other positive things, but to get this group together, they're really a good group of guys, and they just They enjoy the game. They enjoy being around our kids. I think that rubs off onto them. Their personalities come out. One of our biggest things that we really try to stress during the last couple of weeks was just letting our players' personalities come out a little bit, have a little fun, be engaging, have a little bit of attitude and energy on the field, and that has slowly come out, and it really showed up on Saturday.
As far as the kick return and punt return, how soon in the fall do you start, or August, do you start sorting
We
that?
had kick return and punt return going every day before practice and specialist. There's definitely a number of guys that we've kind of penciled into those roles. You know, I know this, that there's a couple of guys that have had experience here doing that, you know, but really in the fall it's going to get down to who catches the ball really well. I think in our kickoff return scheme we'll have two guys back there, a primary and an off returner. The primary returner, you want to have someone that can hit it and get it, you know. And I always say the kickoff return is one guy running and 10 men blocking, and if you have success it's a touchdown. You know, it's a really unique play. And then I think on punt return the biggest thing is to see who has the confidence to catch it back there. In today's world, you know, with the rugby kicks and the different styles of things that you get in the punt game, you really got to have a guy back there that you have the ability to trust with everything that ball is.
I know Coach Ash said that whoever was first on this chart going into August was probably going to remain there to start. I'm assuming, though, that means whether it's quarterback or any other position, everything's still up for grabs.
Yeah, it is. I think, you know, anytime we got a group of freshmen to come in and you don't know what they're going to bring, I think there's going to be a number of guys that make big jumps in the out of season. You know, I look at A.J. Turner and Otha Peters. I mean, two guys that played a lot of football a year ago who kind of now are second string, and just because the other guys, you know, really for lack, they just got the defense a little bit better and performed better. But I could see both those guys. I think they're both good players. They could make a big jump if that light bulb comes on. You know, I look around at there isn't anybody. It's kind of like Saturday. You know, there's a lot of teams that held players out. You know, didn't even let them participate. And you know, I knew on offense that, you know, at some point we were going to get Travis out and Kiero out, because those guys have shown to me that they can play winning football. But I wanted them to play. I wanted them to rep. They needed to get better on defense. Really, the only guy that I afforded the option to get out of the entire scrimmage was Chris Smith, because he'd been a little bit sick, and I didn't want him to get in there and be off a little bit. But he wanted to play in that first quarter, and it showed why. I mean, he loves to compete. So there's positions that I would say probably are pretty locked up, but there's a lot of positions that are wide open.
What do the players do now? I mean, obviously they're lifting weight stuff, but is it focus on academics and wrap up the school year?
What do the players do now?
What kind of,
you know, by NCAA rules, we have to give them a certain number of days or weeks that are discretionary off. By NCAA rules, you have to set those up. So those will be our finals week, and then the next 3 weeks after that to put themselves in a position to come back in June. But you know, I think what I always reference to it, I tell players all the time, you know, the more overtime you can put in, the better off you're going to be. You know, so if they want to volunteer they got lifting this week on Wednesday and Friday. If they want to come in and lift today or tomorrow or anything else, I know Herbs is in there and can put them to work and we'll help them out. You know, we got 4 non-conference opponents last year that we start the season with that it'd be great to get a jump on, and then obviously open up league play with A&M. So there's a lot of film to be watched now. And then one of the things that I love, our defensive coaches in particular, and I know Jim has done this offensively, is give some guys some pro cut-ups. You know, some teams that, you know, we're trying to do these same concepts, and all of a sudden when they see an NFL guy doing it, they tend to buy in a little bit better, you know, or you know, want to be engaged with it. And so a lot of this time though is on their own though. I always tell the guys, you know, be careful, be cautious. A little bit warmer weather, a little bit more free time. That's when, you know, you read about all kinds of guys in the headlines in ways that you don't want to be represented. So we just got to constantly be on them and have them make great choices in that department.
I guess how settled in do you feel? I know you guys are moved into your house and all that. Just how's all that?
We're settled in. We're in a house, but the house is still boxes. I haven't unpacked one box, and I've been told and informed I'm not going to either. So being a good husband and staying away from that scenario. But I think the more and more comfort we felt is probably just getting in a standard way of doing things, you know, getting back to a little bit of a rhythm, a little bit of a standard mode of operation. I think all my coaches' families are here except for Coach Partridge. His wife was in here this weekend, but she isn't coming down with their 2 kids until after the school year is over. So I think as the families have been around a little bit more and getting more and more comfortable, and then just to be around our players, that's been the biggest thing. You know, those first 2 months, it was like I was literally taking a media guide on the plane when I was traveling and trying to memorize faces and names and stuff, and how to know your entire roster and be able to say something to them by name is a big deal.
Where are you and Coach Chaney at in kind of figuring besides the base stuff you got installed?
Well, Coach Chaney, and I've said repeatedly to our offensive and defensive staffs is I wanted to get in spring ball to find out who our players were and what that meant. Is certain guys are going to be able to do things very, very well, and they're not going to be great at others. So our offense is has always got to be a little bit of give and take with what we really want to do, but what our players can do best. It's obvious that that we've got a couple running backs that can run a physical power running game, but if Nate's in there, it really doesn't do you a lot of good to go off tackle with him. It's just not his game. And then I think as your quarterback shows you certain things, then you can kind of build around that as well. And the more comfortable we got with Brandon Allen, the more we felt he could do certain things, and we'd restrict other areas. I know Coach Chaney is always thinking from a philosophy of trying to give his quarterback a package of things to group together, and that is, as you get to know your player, it gets a little bit easier to coach it.
Who did you have on kick returns? Just a few guys that were doing that?
Well, a few guys are back. We had to limit it. They all think they can be back there, but Demetrius Wilson, Hatcher was back there, Nate Holmes. There's a couple guys, TQ Coleman, a couple defensive guys, Tevin Mitchell. Some of those guys think they've got a chance, but they really don't. Herndon was back there. There's mainly our wide receivers, our DBs. But you know what? My leading kick returner at Wisconsin was a linebacker. So if they can catch it and be physical, I don't care what position they play. I just want to be able to catch it and secure it. Same group. It was pretty much the same group on both sides. I think the part that Coach Smith is going to handle that. He's had a lot of success in the return game when he's at Kansas State. And I think the thing there is, the punt returner is a little bit more different because a lot of times now you're making unprotected catches and you got to have a great amount of faith in catching the ball.
The summer program, core of it is 8 weeks?
Yeah, we try to, it's the same thing we did in the beginning. I really believe, and Herbs has been a big sell job on me on this one, is if your body is given an 8-week window to change, it'll change with the development, the nutrition. So we tried to give them 8 weeks on the front end before we started spring ball, and now we'll go into another 8 weeks during the summer. This is the time when our guys grow as much as anything in the entire time of their career. As they grow more in the summer physically, mentally, and a little bit of camaraderie. A little bit of because they're doing drills and they're running 7-on-7 on their own. Coaches can't be there by NCAA rules, so they really got to take that leadership role, and that's when some of those players take that big jump in their leadership skills. Thank you.